हेलो फ्रेंड्स, क्या हाल है दोस्तों। आज बहुत मैंने इंटरेस्टिंग पॉडकास्ट किया है डॉक्टर संजीव चोपड़ा आईएएस ऑफिसर के साथ। और आईएएस से रिटायर होने के बाद, सुपर एनुएशन के बाद वो किताबें लिख रहे हैं, आर्टिकल लिखते हैं, टीवी पे आते हैं। और बहुत उनको, क्योंकि उनके अंदर कहीं ना कहीं एक जर्नलिस्ट छुपा हुआ है, उसके बारे में वो जो है काम करते रहते हैं। और सुपर एन्वेशन से पहले वो लबासना जो आईएएस की एकेडमी है, लाल बहादुर शास्त्री एकेडमी, उसके डायरेक्टर थे। जैसे हमारे यहाँ कमांडेंट आईएमए या कमांडेंट एनडीए है, उस लेवल पर। तो बहुत जो है आईएएस ऑफिसर्स को, आईपीएस और प्रोबेशनर्स को उन्होंने जो है पढ़ाया है, उनको मेंटोर किया है। मैं उनको मिला था कुछ महीने पहले एक मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री सेमिनार में वेलम बॉयज स्कूल के अंदर। वहाँ से हमारी बातचीत शुरू हुई और तब हमने डिसाइड किया कि जब उनकी नई किताब आएगी तो उसके ऊपर हम बात करेंगे। ये इन्होंने बहुत बेहतरीन किताब लिखी है जो कि मैप्स के ऊपर है, भारत की ज्योग्राफी के ऊपर है, भारत का कैसे कॉन्फ़िगरेशन हुआ और आज़ादी के टाइम से लेके किस प्रकार के हमारे उस टाइम के जो हमारे लीडर्स थे, क्या उनकी सोच थी कि नया भारत कैसे बनना चाहिए, भारत की बाउंड्रीज कैसे बननी चाहिए। तो इसके ऊपर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लेसन्स हैं, इसीलिए ज्योग्राफी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। इसीलिए हम बात करते हैं कि हमेशा मैप्स होने चाहिए आपके पास, इंडिया का पॉलिटिकल मैप, इंडिया का ज्योग्राफिकल मैप। तो ये तो मैंने बात करी बुक की। उसके अलावा मैंने उनकी लाइफ की, वो भी सॉरी वो भी एक फौजी कैंटोनमेंट में, फादर उनके बीएसएफ में थे। हमने जलंधर की बात की, हमने पंजाब की बात की, और कैसे आईएएस में आने से पहले वो जेएनयू में पीजी कर रहे थे। और बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है कि जो निर्मला सीतारमन जो आज फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर हैं, वो इनके लिए कैनवस कर रही थी जब वो इलेक्शन में खड़े थे स्टूडेंट लीडर के तौर पे। तो फादर से किसी बात पर उन्होंने कहा तुम एक बार सिविल सर्विस क्रैक करके दिखाओ, फिर जर्नलिज्म करना। तब वो इकोनॉमिक टाइम्स के लिए मेन आर्टिकल लिखना शुरू कर दिए। तो शुरू से लिखने पढ़ने का बहुत शौक था उनको, पढ़ाई में अच्छे थे, पर्सनैलिटी बहुत निखरी हुई थी उनकी। तो उन्होंने पहले चांस में अपना एग्ज़ाम क्रैक किया आईएएस, और उसके बाद वेस्ट बंगाल में बहुत काम किया, उन्हें उत्तराखंड में बहुत काम किया। इंडस्ट्रीज़ को लेके उनका बहुत एक्सपीरियंस है, रूरल एरिया डेवलपमेंट को लेके उनका बहुत एक्सपीरियंस है। और सिक्किम, सिलीगुड़ी, दार्जिलिंग, जो है न्यू जलपाईगुड़ी, उस एरिया का बहुत इनको जो है वहाँ पर वो यंग सर्विस से लेके सीनियर सर्विस तक उन्होंने वहाँ पे नौकरी करी है, बहुत कंट्रीब्यूट किया है देश के इतिहास में पिछले 35-40 सालों में। तो मुझे बहुत मज़ा आया, मैंने उनसे इन सब मुद्दों पे बातचीत की, बहुत फ्री फ्रैंक डिस्कशन रहा। और मैंने उनसे ये भी बात की कि आज की नौजवान पीढ़ी, आज के जो युवा लोग हैं जो मुझे फॉलो करते हैं, चाहे आप एनडीए का एग्जाम दे रहे हैं या यूपीएससी सीएससी का एग्जाम दे रहे हैं, आपको किस प्रकार आपका रूटीन बनाना पड़ेगा, किस प्रकार की किताबें पढ़नी पड़ेंगी। और 16, 17, 18 साल से अगर आप सोचो तो आप कैसे बड़ी आसानी से जो है आप ये सब एग्जाम जो है क्रैक करके अपना सपना पूरा कर सकते हैं। लेकिन जरूरी चीज क्या है? राइटिंग, राइटिंग, राइटिंग। इन्होंने बहुत एम्फेसिस किया है राइटिंग के ऊपर। हम क्या रीडिंग कर लेते हैं, सुन लेते हैं, लेकिन राइटिंग नहीं करते हैं। तो प्लीज स्टार्ट राइटिंग। वो जर्नलिंग से स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं, लेख लिखने से स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं। तो अगर सचमुच में आप ऑफिसर बनना चाहते हैं एलीट सर्विस के अंदर, तो यू हैव टू स्टार्ट राइटिंग, रीडिंग। ये भी मैंने बात की कि आजकल जो इतना सोशल मीडिया के ज़माने में बहुत ज़्यादा फेक न्यूज़, प्रोपेगेंडा आता है, तो उस पर कैसे अपना वक्त कम ज़ाया करें और ऑथेंटिक सोर्स से पढ़ने की कोशिश करें और नोट्स बनाएं। सो बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग कन्वर्जेशन रहा। मैंने इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स की बात की, इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स की बात की उनसे, ट्रांसपेरेंसी की बात की। और आने वाले दिनों में मैंने उनके साथ हम अलग अलग एपिसोड लेके आएंगे जिसमें हम आईएएस रिफॉर्म्स की बात करेंगे, पुलिस रिफॉर्म्स की बात करेंगे और जुडिशियल रिफॉर्म्स की बात करेंगे। So friends, watch this very interesting conversation with Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, IAS retired, on Mor Talks. Subscribe to this channel because my second innings is for your first innings. Thank you. Jai Hind. At the outset, Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, IAS officer, Director of LBSNAA, एंड बहुत वेल नोन फेस हैं आप एक आईएएस ऑफिसर होते हुए। मैं आपसे पिछली बार देहरादून में मिला था, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। हम वेलम स्कूल के एक मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री और काफी देर बैठे हम पास में, एक दूसरे के साथ व्यूज एक्सचेंज किए। सो मेरे लिए आज बहुत फख्र का दिन है कि आप जो है मोर टॉक्स में मेरे चैनल पे आए हो। सो वेलकम, स्वागत है आपका।
Hey, thank you, General Yash. It's a pleasure to be with you. And nice to carry that conversation forward.
या वही कन्वर्सेशन आगे लेके
हाँ
जाएंगे।
वही चलते हैं, आफ्टर ऑल लाइफ इज अ कॉन्वर्सेशन।
लाइफ
जिंदगी
इज अ
क्या है?
कन्वर्सेशन।
लाइफ इज
हाँ।
अ कॉन्वर्सेशन।
हाँ, और ये आपका थैंक यू वेरी मच, आपने किताब भेजी मेरे पास, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। मैप्स के बारे में आपने लिखा, इसकी बाद में बात करेंगे क्योंकि ज्योग्राफी मेरे दिल के बहुत करीब है। और नक्शे, मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ जिसके घर में इंडिया का मैप नहीं है, वर्ल्ड का मैप नहीं है, वो अनपढ़ है। कम से कम एक आधा नक्शा होना चाहिए।
मेरी वो मुझे तो नक्शों में इंटरेस्ट था क्योंकि उसमें 100% मार्क्स आते थे।
हाँ।
नक्शे में, अगर नक्शे में, बिकॉज साइंस में तो आ जाते हैं, मैथ्स में भी आ जाते हैं, लेकिन हिस्ट्री और ज्योग्राफी में द ओनली वे यू कैन गेट 100% in that 25-30 marks thing is through maps, and I have always maxed my maps paper all through. So that's been one fascinating journey with maps.
मैप्स के साथ, तो इसीलिए आपने इतनी बढ़िया किताब लिखी है इस पे। तो सबसे पहले डॉक्टर संजीव, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूंगा कि मुझे अपने बचपन से लेके, और आपने यूपीएससी की इतनी कठिन परीक्षा पास की, आप आईएएस, उसके बारे में इफ यू कैन टेल आवर स्टूडेंट्स अपनी जिंदगी के बारे में।
Zindagi, my father was in the BSF and I grew up in the Punjab Armed Police campus. फादर की पोस्टिंग भी होती रही लेकिन वी रिटेन दैट हाउस। तो
अच्छा, वहां जलंधर में।
जलंधर
हाँ,
कैंट
जो
अभी भी
कोर हेडक्वार्टर के साथ में।
कोर हेडक्वार्टर के बिल्कुल सामने। तो पूरा जो बचपन है वो तो
हाँ।
कट गया पीएपी लाइंस में, बीएसएफ में और जलंधर कैंट। इसलिए बहुत इंटरेक्शन रही है बचपन से ही आर्मी के साथ, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ माय क्लास फेलोज वर, आई मीन देयर पेरेंट्स वर इन द आर्मी।
हाँ।
वहां पे वो रीगल सिनेमा के सामने, जलंधर कैंट क्लब के सामने जो एसटी मॉडल स्कूल है,
हाँ।
आई
हाँ।
स्टडीड देयर फॉर सम टाइम, एंड उसके बाद में बीएसएफ मेड इट्स ओन स्कूल। So the principal was very keen that I should join that school. He was a friend of my father, so that's how I joined BSF school. फिर वहाँ पे मैं रहा। आई मीन जब कैंपस में तो आप जैसे आपको मालूम है कि बहुत एम्फसिस रहता है फिजिकल एक्टिविटीज पे भी, इंटेलेक्चुअल डेवलपमेंट पे भी, और ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं भी नहीं। मतलब जिस किस्म की फैसिलिटीज हमें थी पीएपी कैंपस में, जलंधर कैंट में, चाहे वो हॉर्स राइडिंग हो, चाहे वो टेनिस हो, चाहे वो स्विमिंग पूल्स हो, वो नॉर्मली वो फैसिलिटीज आजकल तो उपलब्ध हैं लेकिन उन दिनों में तो थी नहीं। सो वन हैज नो हेजिटेशन इन सेइंग दैट वन हैज हैड अ प्रिविलेज्ड।
तो हम लकी हैं जो फौजियों के बालक हैं किसी तरीके
बहुत
से।
बहुत 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 फॉर्चुनेट, बिकॉज दीज थिंग्स आर नॉट अवेलेबल आउटसाइड। तो एक तो ये बड़ा अच्छी जो चीज रही कि कैंट में रहने की वजह से एक ऑल इंडिया पर्सपेक्टिव बहुत बचपन से मिल जाता है। मैं जब कंपेयर करता हूँ अपने आप को मेरे बाकी कजन्स के साथ, हु वर स्टेइंग इन से अमृतसर, और हु वर स्टेइंग इन कपूरथला, और हु वर स्टेइंग इन पट्टी, देयर क्लास फेलोज वर confined to their geography.
हम्म।
But our class fellows have not been confined to any particular geography. We have, met Mazumdars and Subramaniams and
हाँ, हम
Fatmans
ना
and,
हम शुरू
you
से
know,
हम
we have
शुरू से
met
ऑल इंडिया
everybody.
ऑल क्लास रहे।
ऑल इंडिया रहे। तो
ऑल
कई
इंडिया
बार
ऑल क्लास।
कभी कभी जब पूछते हैं आप कहाँ से, हम कहते हो वेल नोशनली आई एम फ्रॉम कपूरथला बट नॉट स्टेड देयर लॉन्ग इनफ, एंड पोस्टिंग्स तो पूरे देश में होती रही। सो इन अ वे इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग फिनोमेनन। और कैंटोनमेंट में बड़े होने का एक डिफरेंट माहौल रहता है।
हम्म।
खैर इट इज नॉट अवेलेबल टू एवरीवन, सो वन कांट से कि आप भी जाए। और एनीवे अब तो कैंटोनमेंट्स अबॉलिश होने वाले हैं। मेरा एक इंसिडेंटली आई हैव एन आर्टिकल ऑन कैंटोनमेंट्स आल्सो।
अच्छा।
I had done a study on cantonments, and I had, in fact, पाकिस्तान प्रेस में हमारे कैंटोनमेंट्स की अबॉलिशन की कहीं ज्यादा कवरेज हुई हमारी प्रेस से। इनफैक्ट
अच्छा।
दैट्स बीन वन ऑफ माय मोस्ट पॉपुलर आर्टिकल्स, on how cantonments are being merged. So there are two views on the subject on whether
हाँ। हाँ।
cantonment remain as cantonments. But in Pakistan, because हमारे यहाँ तो cantonments इतने नहीं बढ़े, लेकिन पाकिस्तान में cantonments have really grown। और जो गैप है बिटवीन हमारे कैंटोनमेंट्स में और सिविलियन पॉपुलेशन में भी गैप है, लेकिन वो गैप तो फ्रैंकली ऑलमोस्ट खत्म हो गया है। लेकिन पाकिस्तान में तो ये गैप और भी ज्यादा, एंड द रिजेंटमेंट अगेंस्ट द कैंटोनमेंट इन पाकिस्तान इज वेरी प्रोनाउंस्ड। दैट इज समथिंग व्हिच आई
वो उनकी फौज के
एक
खिलाफ भी वो बहुत एलीट हैं। और
इट्स
हमारे
एक्चुअली हमारे यहाँ
एक
देयर
क्रेडिट
इज
देना पड़ेगा
हमारे
हमारे।
यहाँ फौज के लिए एक बहुत, इनफैक्ट इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, द फौज इज सो पावरफुल देयर politically, and
हम्म।
it is so unacceptable socially, you know
हाँ।
and हमारे यहाँ, आई मीन, Fauj has no political power, but the social acceptance of the Fauj as the unifier of the country is so strong. So it's a great dilemma, right? So you could have all the political power, and you could have you could be totally out insofar as the legitimacy is concerned. So that's a very important fact.
हम्म
अच्छा, एक चीज और मैं आपको बताऊं जलंधर कैंट के बारे में.
हम्म
जलंधर कैंट में यू स्टेड इन जलंधर कैंट.
हाँ हाँ, मैं अमृतसर में आर्मर्ड ब्रिगेड कमांड की मैंने.
Did you
और
know that the Irish soldiers of the British Army had revolted in 1920
ओ
in Jalandhar camp, जहाँ वो फ्री मेसन्स हॉल है ना,
हाँ 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 हाँ.
जलंधर कैंट में, उसके पास में. इनफैक्ट this was the only I mean the it was immediately, I mean, no news came out of it, but during the course of my research on cantonments, I realized that this Jalandhar Cant was the only place where the Irish soldiers of the British Army had rebelled against it. In fact, that is perhaps what explains why General O'Dwyer and the others wanted to prove their loyalty. Wanted to be extra loyal. That is why so maybe those were the reasons. So perhaps, but there's so many interesting things about Jalandhar Cant, come to light. In fact, the other thing about Jalandhar Cant is that Untouchable, जो मुल्क राज आनंद ने जो story लिखी है, that is also set in Jalandhar Cant.
Oh.
So, but anyway, this is not a session on Jalandhar Cant, but
This is a session on your journey.
But it's interesting to know Jalandhar Cant कितना अच्छा hockey has been a great sport there.
एससी की हॉकी की टीम वहीं पे बेस्ड थी.
हमारे खालसा
साल्टर
कॉलेज
आर्मी की एससी की हॉकी टीम.
So, in fact, at some point of time, about Ajit Pal, including Ajit Pal Singh, I mean, so many players were from Khalsa College. So, in any case, so I studied in Jalandhar Cant, and then because I was too young for my age, so I shifted to the Punjab School Education Board to clear my 11th. I could have continued, but I was very tempted to give the exam early, so I've shifted to Junior Model School, Jalandhar. And then I was too young to get admission in Delhi University. So I did try to get admission in Stephens, but I was too young for that.
कौन से साल की बात है? अपने 11th कब की?
1976. I had cleared my higher secondary. I was 15 years old at that time.
अच्छा.
I should have been 16 at that time.
हाँ, you should. हाँ.
So then I joined DAV College for 1 year. But then Khalsa College was very close to the BSF campus, right next door.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 2 or 3 professors of Khalsa College who were very fond of me because I was very good in debating. So Professor Satish Kapoor the, Professor O.P. Khurana, they said, why don't you join Khalsa College, and then you can participate in all the debates and all the declamation contests and all the youth festivals. So that's how I moved to Khalsa College. I did my honors in English because, till 1979, you needed to be only 20 years old to join the IPS. And you needed only one paper. And I thought, let me take the paper of English literature, English essay, general knowledge, और मैं सोचा कि 20 साल में बस IPS बन जाएंगे और life would be good. One was so enamored with the uniform and things. So that's what I thought. But while doing my honors in English, I got very deeply invested in journalism and media. I started writing articles for Youth Times होता था, Junior Statesman होता था. मैं एक आध बार कॉलम निकल गया तो one felt कि अब हमने जिंदगी दुनिया फतेह कर ली है. Because when you
प्रिंट में अपना नाम देखना ना, आज भी दिल मिलता है तो.
You are 17, 18, it's a different charm altogether. And so I, much against my father's wishes, I said, no, I must join the media. But in any case, for my MA, I decided to do history, because my professor Satish Kapoor was very deeply immersed in history. So I thought let's.
MA भी आपने वहीं से की, खालसा कॉलेज से?
MA I had joined JNU for my MA.
अच्छा,
okay. There was, I didn't study very much in JNU. I got too involved in the politics of JNU. So I came back.
Free thinking में आ गए आप.
Free thinking में आ गए. And I must tell you that, while in JNU, because of my alliance with the free thinkers, Nirmala Sitharaman, she campaigned for me in my elections.
अरे वाह.
Vice presidentship of the JNU.
आज आपका फोन उठाएंगे अगर आप फोन करोगे तो?
नहीं, I must say that her PS acknowledges the message, because when I was contesting elections for IIC, so I sent her a message saying that, well, you had helped me when I mean, that you were my supporter when I fought the election there. So her PS sent a thumbs up. So I'm sure she must have.
ये कौन
It
से
was
साल की
electoral.
बात है? ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग, कौन से साल की बात है ये?
This was 82.
तो 82 में आप इलेक्शन लड़ रहे थे जेएनयू
JNU
प्रेसिडेंट के लिए,
vice president, yeah, because I was
वाइस
on the
प्रेसिडेंट
post
के
of
लिए,
vice president.
और निर्मला सीतारमन जो हमारी फाइनेंस
Was at
मिनिस्टर
that time she was campaigning. She was not as active in politics as I was, but then of course she continued in politics. And मेरे साथ ये हुआ कि by 82 I was writing lead articles in Economic Times and everything. But my father said कि ये क्या है, तो कोई भी लिख सकता है ये आर्टिकल लिख, क्या दम है तो ये सिविल सर्विसेज क्रैक करके दे. So it was more of a challenge, more of a challenge, and so that's how, I mean, I would use the word that but he sort of got me to write the civil services exam. And so it was very interesting because he said, ki, Manaka, I'm working now. How do I manage? I'm now independent. He says, okay, you work for me for 6 months, I'll give you your salary. There was
अच्छा,
salary in the Economic Times. I think 1350 rupees. He says, all right, I'll give you 1350 rupees, not a penny more, not a penny less. And you work for me for 6 months, take leave without pay. And तो मैंने कहा वो छुट्टी वुट्टी कैसे मिलेगी, he says वो सब जाएगा. It was a small world those days, so he rang up. I think
ये कौन सी बात है? 83 की बात है? 83 84?
83 में, 83 end की बात है. So 84 I took the exam.
अच्छा.
So that's it. I mean, so then I took the exam, and it wasn't very difficult for me. And I say this with a lot of humility at my mind, that I think the main problem, Yash, is that it is not about how much you know. It is about how well you can write. And being a journalist, especially with the Economic Times, we learnt the art of compressing the article, making it precise, or expanding it depending on advertisement है कि नहीं. Because typically क्या होता है न्यूज़पेपर में, अगर एडवर्टाइजमेंट आ जाती है तो आप कॉलम को छोटा कर देते हैं, एडवर्टाइजमेंट नहीं होती तो आप कॉलम को बढ़ा.
एडवर्टाइजर इज द किंग, वही पैसे दे रहा है.
Well, of course, I mean, that is that fortunately, unfortunately, still this is still, but एक फर्क है. You see, now in the print media, for example, when I write for the print, there's no problem because the ad does not interfere with your space. But if you're writing, not for the edit page, but like, I mean, the basic expertise was when you're doing page 2, page 3, page 4, you're writing a report, say coal ministry ki report hai, ya textile ministry ki report hai, it's a front page report, but usi samay koi advertisement aa gaya, so then you have to compress it. So I think I would give a lot of credit of my success in the civil services to journalism, to the training that we had in the time.
आप बड़ी ह्यूमिलिटी से आप कह रहे हो कि आपने आसानी से पास कर लिया.
हाँ, मतलब
वो बात नहीं थी जो आज मुखर्जी नगर, राजेंद्र नगर, तो लोग कई साल बैठते हैं.
और because ultimately देखिए मटेरियल तो वही है. It is the same material, वही NCERT की किताबें. अब आप the most popular subject is PS and IAS, political science and IAS. There's a subject of sociology. एक pub ad है, उसमें तो 500 पेज आपने अगर रट लिए तो I mean, in the sense that, but material is the same. I mean, after all, Max Weber will remain the same. I mean, Very Relevant will remain the same. M.N. Srinivas will remain the same. All material will remain the same. तो material तो सबके पास वही रहेगा. अखबारें भी सब लोग वही पढ़ेंगे. Everybody reads the Express, they read the Print, they read the Hindu, they listen to your interviews. I mean, they go to other things. Material is the same. Material की तो कोई shortage नहीं. All material for the IAS is you can download it free actually. I mean, it's totally free. So it is not the content which matters. It is how you curate that content in that limited time. In fact, वो 10th fail में भी तो वो है ना, then he goes and he meets this police officer. He says, "इतनी time में ये लिख." That is the point. So, and I think if you write, so my message to all our viewers also would be that if you are devoting, say, if you decided to study for 8 hours a day, spend 4 hours in writing what you know. Because
लिखना जरूरी है.
writing, like horse riding, is not something that can be taught. The more you are on the horse, the more the horse will understand you. You take the saddle. It's like horse riding. It's a skill. So
स्किल
I
है.
would say that writing is a skill, and it's a skill that can be developed. It's a skill that has to be honed. It's a skill that has to be perfected. And the more you write, the better you get.
Excellent.
First time when you sit down to write a 1,000-word article, it will take you a long time. But now that you write very regularly, I mean, I do book reviews, for example. Now, earlier, a book review would take a long time, for me to do a book review. But now what I do is that when I read a book, I keep making notes on the side. I like scribbling, I mean, which is the advantage of having a paperback. I like putting flags on the different pages. So after you've read the book, then it's very easy to flag those relevant pages or to flag those relevant lines which you need to quote. And I find that I can do a book review fairly easily in
वो
about 2 to 3
प्रैक्टिस के साथ हम बड़ी जल्दी इशू को समझ जाते हैं और हम रियलाइज नहीं करते हमारी जो नॉलेज इतनी है वो हमें हेल्प करती है पर्सपेक्टिव समझने में. देन टाइपिंग बिकम्स मच इजियर. तो कौन से साल में आपने यूपीएससी क्रैक किया?
84 एग्जाम, 85 बैच.
85 बैच में आपने ज्वाइन किया. तो ये जर्नी ना हमारी काफी सेम है. मैं फिरोजपुर में था.
अच्छा, वेरी गुड.
मेरे फादर सूबेदार मेजर थे फिरोजपुर में और मैं गुरु नानक कॉलेज में पढ़ता था.
फिरोजपुर का तो बहुत बढ़िया वो सच ए लवली प्लेस.
हाँ वही तो कह रहा हूँ. और मेरे को एग्जैक्टली यही शौक था राइटिंग का और डिबेटिंग का. और मेरे फादर को रिटायरमेंट नजदीक आ रहा था. कहते यार तेरे को भेजा था मिलिट्री स्कूल में ऑफिसर बनने के लिए, एनडीए भी नहीं किया. तो तब मेरे था कि यार मैं आईपीएस ऑफिसर बनूं या कुछ. उन्होंने कहा चुपचाप ऐसा कर, तू ये पहले फौज का एग्जाम पास कर ले और ये लिखना पढ़ना है बंद कर दे, ड्रामेटिक्स और ये सब, क्योंकि तेरे ऊपर पूरे घर की उम्मीद है. तो आई सैट फॉर माई एग्जाम and 83 I cracked the CDS exam and joined the academy.
Okay. So it's good. I mean, we could have met in a debate at that time also, but maybe we did. तो आपका भी ये फिरोजपुर was at the Punjab University or
yes पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी.
That's why we didn't connect.
मेरे को एक्टिंग का चस्का था. मैं बेस्ट एक्टर था यूनिवर्सिटी का. मैं डिबेटिंग में था. मैं यूनिवर्सिटी की हैंडबॉल टीम में था. मतलब 2 साल कॉलेज ना, मतलब पता नहीं, मैं बता नहीं सकता आपको. मेरी जिंदगी के बहुत बेहतरीन.
इसीलिए हमारी मुलाकात हुई because we were affiliated to अमृतसर Guru Nanak Dev University and you were affiliated to Punjab University. That's why we had to wait several years till we met at there. Otherwise, if our colleges had been affiliated to the same university, then I'm sure we would have,
कहीं ना कहीं. हाँ बिल्कुल. बट आप अच्छे विद्यार्थियों में था. मैं आई वाज नॉट सो गुड एकेडमिकली.
देखिए ऐसा है कि मतलब BA Honors English में I did top, but there were hardly any students at that time. So yes, but again, fortunately, the subject that I chose, I mean, all subjects that I chose were subjects which I was greatly interested in. मतलब English literature पढ़ने में कभी कोई strain नहीं. I never felt that I'm, one of the interesting things is that life has been comfortable in the sense that I've got to do what I wanted to do, So that has been a fascinating thing. I mean, I was always fond of reading. So if you're fond of reading and you get English literature as a subject, then life is very easy. I mean, comparatively, it's not that you...
I think ये दो चीजें ना आपकी और हमारे जैसे लोगों की लाइफ डिफाइन की है कि हमें जल्दी पढ़ने का शौक हो गया. लिटरेचर, मुझे भी लिटरेचर का बहुत शौक था और लिखने का शौक हो गया, है ना. ये दो चीजें काफी महत्वपूर्ण है आज भी अगर आप अपनी लाइफ बनाना चाहते हैं, यंग लोग भी.
Absolutely. And long form reading का तो अपना मजा. When you read a book for about 10 days, there's a War and Peace पढ़ो या
बिल्कुल. हाँ.
You read any of these great classics. It's a great charm. And I think the other thing was the importance of libraries. हमारे टाइम में libraries में जाना भी एक बड़ा मजेदार. I mean, it used to be a pleasure to go to the library, read books, spend time in the library. But I suppose ठीक है, आज भी ठीक है.
आज भी ठीक है. अभी आपकी भी मैं देख रहा हूँ पर्सनल लाइब्रेरी, और मैं भी मतलब यहाँ भी किताबें पढ़ी हुई हैं, इधर भी बहुत अच्छा लगता है जस्ट टू बी सराउंडेड बाय बुक्स. तो अब मुझे बताओ डॉक्टर संजीव की, अब आपने IAS ऑफिसर बन गए, उसके बाद आपकी कौन से काडर में गए आप?
You see, what happened was that in fact this was the first year when the cadre policy was changed, because after the massive agitation in Assam, Punjab, Jammu Kashmir, the government did not want they did not want people to go to their own state. And they did
ओके.
not want people to go to their own state. Therefore, we were randomized. So ours was the first batch which was randomized. And I mean, many of us felt very aggrieved that time कि भाई हमें मिलना चाहिए था because पुराने सिस्टम में पंजाब नहीं मिलता. I mean, I would not have got Punjab, was not in the first 10, but I would have got Rajasthan or Himachal or
हरियाणा.
would have been close by. But in a way, in retrospect, I think it is good to be posted away from where you belong. It has its own advantages. And so I got West Bengal and I was posted to Purulia district.
हम्म.
What I like to share with the readers is, that fortunately, many places, most places that I have been to are places that one had not even heard of. Purulia naam suna hi nahi tha main. I had not heard of Purulia till I got my posting order. When I got Purulia as the posting order, उन दिनों में इंटरनेट तो होता नहीं था, so you couldn't really Google information कि पुरुलिया कहाँ है, क्या है, क्या है. तो हमारे एक लॉ के प्रोफेसर थे, he says कि पुरुलिया is next to Bankura, वहाँ पे Tropic of Cancer passes through.
अच्छा.
Well, so that is the claim to fame of Purulia. So let's read up on Tropic of Cancer because I didn't get material on Purulia. So I read Henry Miller, Tropic of Cancer. No relationship between Purulia and the Tropic of Cancer and Henry Miller's book. But, then I read up the Gazetteer. So एक चीज जो अच्छी मुझे हमेशा से लगी वो ये कि wherever you get posted, you read up about that place. So then I read Purulia. Then, while I was in Purulia, there was this massive agitation going on in Darjeeling, the GNLF agitation.
हाँ, ये बहुत चला वो गोरखालैंड का.
Some of us were then, three of us were inducted into the Darjeeling district. I opted to go to Darjeeling and I was posted as, during my training period itself. So I got posted as assistant magistrate Darjeeling and I was made BDO Kalimpong. वहाँ पे वो हमारी had a very, very good relationship with the army officers there. General Fagura was there that time. And then General Fagura, and in fact, is the ADC is now becoming, he's a very dear friend. Shravan is now retired as a Major General, now settled in Hyderabad. So we became very good friends. And I've developed such a lot of rapport with the army because Sara हमारा civil administration तो बंद था 40 दिन का बंद हो गया. So we had a lot of very good, I had the only functioning telephone, so every youngster would come to my place to make phone calls. So we had a great time. We had a great time.
तो आप वेस्ट बंगाल में पुरुलिया, कालिम्पोंग और मिदनापुर वगैरह काफी रिमोट एरियाज में सर्व किया.
Mostly been in north, because after Kalimpong, I was posted there as SDO also, but after the GNLF agitation, Mr. Gishing wanted all of us out, all of us who had been part of that. So we were out. So I did a management course at MDI Gurgaon and then went to Kuch Bihar as ADM when the Teen Biga transfer was happening. By which time Mr. Gishing realized that all these officers, at least they knew Nepali. Nepali ma pura kar nu sakta. So then I went back to Darjeeling, was there for another 3 years. Also held charge of Siliguri Jalpaiguri Development Authority. Then I was on training here when I was posted at the Mussoorie Academy. 6 to 9 years की जो हमारी training होती है, I was posted as DM of West Dinar, Balutha. Director साहब ने उन दिनों 3 हफ्ते की training होती. So the director said, no, you're not allowed to. You can't leave training. I was very disappointed. DM बने या जाने नहीं दिया. But in a way it was good because 3 महीने बाद when the next district fell vacant, so I got posted to Murshidabad, which is a fascinating place because the Battle of Plassey, Lord Clive, Warren Hastings was there for some time, and the whole history of Murshidabad is so fascinating. I have a print column on Murshidabad because it was at one point of time one of the largest districts in terms of population. 93, 94 में तब Yash at that time the population was 65 lakhs. In 1994, तो Governor of Tripura was holding temporary charge of West Bengal. तो आए हमारे जिले में तो हमने दिखाया अपना डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्लान. कहता है ये तो भाई 3 गुना है हमारे स्टेट के 3 गुना का. हाँ. अब क्या करें? We have the DO of this place. And it's a fascinating district, with 29 development blocks, a long 96-kilometer border with Bangladesh, 5 subdivisions. So in the age of BSF, very good relationships with everyone because of, the advantage of having grown up in the BSF campus, and my wife's father was also in BSF. So we knew everybody. So it was very good. Border talks, went to Bangladesh for border talks, helped in the restoration of Hazardwari. So, I mean, as you go along, you learn things. So वहां पहुंच गए.
इंटरेस्टिंग फेज में आप भारत के मतलब जो है बहुत उस पे यू हैव सर्व्ड इन दोज एरियाज.
I've
हाँ.
served in those areas, and tough, I would say tough, and so I mean, as you're aware, PM का काम ही coordination का काम है. So it's interesting. So while I was there, then as happened in the case of every officer, थोड़ा बहुत, little bit of conflict with the local politicians. तो जरूरी है, होता रहता है. In fact, because I had been in the Times of India. I mean, you see, हमारी जो training थी, training was in the Times of India training school at Bombay. उसके बाद में the training used to be very interesting. You were sent for 3 months to Times of India, 3 months to Economic Times, Femina, Film Fair, news desk. So you were circulated to all these departments. And interestingly, पहला जो काम होता है ट्रेनी जर्नलिस्ट का, वो ये होता था टू अपडेट ओबिचुरीज. क्योंकि जब कैन यू इमेजिन इंटरनेट से पहले अगर सडनली कोई रात में मर जाए, मतलब किसी का इंतकाल हो जाए, तो यू कांट डू एन इंटरनेट सर्च एंड डू कंटेंट राइटिंग. सो ऑल न्यूज़पेपर्स had to keep फुल फोल्डर फाइल रेडी, और उसको हर 3 महीने में अपडेट करते रहे. गिवन टू ट्रेनीज जो जाने वाले उनकी तैयारी करने के लिए. इनफैक्ट मेरे एक मित्र थे, आई मीन ही डीपी त्रिपाठी. He later was a very prominent student. Later he became an MP. He said कि ऐसी बात हो रही थी इम्पोर्टेंस की. मैं कहा देखिए सर, ऐसा है कि अगर टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ने आपकी ओबिचुरी बना ली है, तब तो आप सिग्निफिकेंट हैं. अगर आपकी नहीं बनी है, तो इसका मतलब आप मैटर नहीं करते. बिकॉज ये सेट किया तो मेरी ओबिचुरी बनवा दूंगा. As a party, you promised me a good.
My God, this is news.
If you were something, then your obituary had to be ready. अभी रात को कुछ हो गया, something happened. So because दिनों में, as you're aware, the edition used to set the edition. तो 12 बजे तक, 11:30, 12 बजे तक अगर कोई फ्लैश न्यूज आती थी, रेडियो पे आ गई न्यूज कोई कि 10 बजे particular incident, I mean, somebody has died. So in the next half an hour, I mean, some newspapers would do it and some would not be able to do it. And that was a competition amongst newspapers. कि भाई हमने टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में हमारे पास obituary थी, but this was later I realized कि statesman भी करता है, express, सब newspapers actually format तो वही होता है. You would be working for paper A or paper B. So that's how it happened. So I was in Economic Times in the magazine section of Economic Times. A lot of people think I'm an economist, but I'm not an economist. But I was working for the Sunday section, the weekly news reading, doing book reviews, helping them out.
तो कुछ आपका जर्नलिज्म कैरियर ऊपर से IAS भी आपको जैक ऑफ ऑल ट्रेड्स बना देता है. डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स यू हैंडल, गेट पोस्टेड.
Fortunately, I must say कि मेरे को बहुत ज्यादा, I mean, I have not been transferred many times. I must be very candid. I have not had major, minor pangas here and there, but on the whole, I have basically been posted either in industries or in agriculture or in trade. These are the 3 major areas in which I've had, and fortunately, that's also given me a fair amount of expertise. Training में spent about 10 years in training.
उसमें कोई जाना नहीं चाहता. ये हमें खबर मिलती है कि कोई IPS, कोई IAS जो है ट्रेनिंग में नहीं पढ़ाना नहीं चाहता.
I would not say that because I have opted to be in training. You have many colleagues of mine who are actually fond of reading and writing. They've opted to come into this training. Agriculture was always. I've always been fascinated by agriculture, cooperatives, and these things, rural development. I've always been fascinated, but for some strange reason, I also got typecast as a successful secretary for industries. in Uttarakhand. So after that, when I went to Bengal, so the CM there also did Secretary Industries, first Secretary Agriculture, then Secretary Industry. So I've not had, in fact, I've not had a posting in health or in education or in social sectors. So I mean, that way again, life has been kind, I would say.
नहीं, ये आपने बहुत कम लोग करते हैं, लेट बी फ्रैंक, राइटिंग, रीडिंग एंड ट्रेनिंग। और दूसरा आपका जो है, मुझे बहुत अच्छी चीज ये लगी कि पोस्ट रिटायरमेंट लॉट ऑफ ब्यूरोक्रेट्स लुक की, जो हमने चीफ मिनिस्टर्स के साथ नौकरी करी, अगर वो कैबिनेट कहीं ना कहीं अपनी वो लगा के रखो कि हमें पोस्ट रिटायरमेंट कोई ना कोई अच्छी पोजीशन मिल जाए, गवर्नर बन जाए, कोई चेयरमैन कहीं बना दिया जाए, तो वो पीरियड अच्छा वाला चलता रहे। आपने वो भी नहीं ऑप्ट किया, इसके पीछे क्या रीजन है?
नहीं, एक तो one is that you see, I had started writing this book. It's We the People of the State. So that keeps me very busy. Then we also do that literature festival called Valley of Words that I've been
या हाँ हाँ हाँ,
This is now the 8th year of Valley of Words. And this, this writing offer started coming. So once all these things start coming, I mean, I do a regular column for print now. I mean, immediately after my retirement, they asked me to write for them. So, I mean, if you have to write 2 columns, it takes about 3 to 4 days of research. So book reviews and this and that, and then teaching assignments, lectures. So there's never been a free moment actually. I mean, it was COVID third when I superannuated. So, but
yeah, we superannuated during COVID.
Yeah.
I remember. So अब ना मैं I will two things. एक तो you tell me about your book first, and then your tenure as director LBSNAA. That must have been बहुत मजेदार रहा होगा to be director of the IAS Academy. सारे प्रोफेशनल वहां आते हैं और उनको they all look up to the the commandant. आप क्या director है?
I do look up to the director because you relate to the director. I mean, in fact, even in our times, we don't know who the cabinet secretary was. We don't know who the DOPT secretary, because he's not relatable. The director is a relatable person. So anyway, about this book, so
yeah, we'll discuss the book.
So what I'll do is I'll let me read 5 or 6 lines from the book.
Yeah, bilkul.
And then it'll be easier. Then you can because what happens is that not everybody will read the book.
Yeah, but they should know कि एक किताब है ऐसी जिसके अंदर जो है जो making of India, making of Bharat, and how maps have played a role in.
I must tell you that I used the word Bharat much before it became popular.
हम भी यूज करते थे, हिंदी में हमेशा भारत वर्ड यूज करते, बड़ा फक्र होता था।
But getting Bharat into this, that was to make a clear distinction between administration of states. I mean, the British, India had states. British India had states. So my argument in this book has been that while British India had states, Bharat was organized on linguistic lines. That is the thing. That is because, you see, जो 4 लोग जिनके हर चीज पे व्यूज डिफरेंट थी, महात्मा गांधी की, सरदार पटेल की, नेहरू की, डॉक्टर अंबेडकर की, इनफैक्ट दे हैड वेरी डिफरेंट व्यूज ऑन मोस्ट थिंग्स. यस, आई मीन Mahatma Gandhi was not in favor of an organized civil service at all. I mean, he felt it should be Gram Swaraj. So most power should be with the people, and then it should move up. So he was not a statist as such. Sardar Patel, on the other hand, was a very clear statist. He was a person who believed in the power of the state. He believed that you cannot operate without a strong state, strong center, strong state. And in fact, he's what I would say, the Bhishma Pitama for the IAS and the IPS, because, the Beach mein to, Secretary of State had terminated the contract with the ICS and the IP. He said, no, you can't do it. You cannot do it. I mean, and we'll decide. So then he had convened a meeting on the 21st and 22nd of October 1946, when he was the home member. He called all the chief ministers, 11 states, 13 states at that time, and he said, what do we do about the ICS? So usme se 8 states said that we need the ICS. Actually, the dissenting ones were like Sindh and the Bengal, which had a non-Congress chief minister, premium at that time. But he sort of said that no, we'll and the first selections to the IAS were from those who had been relieved from the Indian Army. because that was the first
Yeah,
school
yeah.
from which they, and that also देखिए कितनी मजेदार चीज है. Those those whom the army felt should be relieved, they rose up and they rose much higher in the ranks. अच्छा, the other thing is, BSF में जैसे 62 वॉर के बाद, जब 65 के बाद जब उन्होंने रिलीज किए PCO, सो मेनी ऑफ देम बिकेम IGs एंड ADGs. जो उनके जो लोग रह गए आर्मी में, दे रिटायर्ड एज कर्नल्स. सम डिड नॉट इवन रिटायर एज कर्नल, बिकॉज तब तो कर्नल भी गारंटीड नहीं था. So some
Major. They would mostly retired as majors.
majors. और जो उनके कुलीग जो BSF में आ गए, all of them, I mean, most of them would have retired as commandants or DAGs, and some, for 10, 15, 20% of them also became IGs. And some even became ADGs. So it's life has some very interesting stuff. Anyway, हमारी तो, what I'm thinking, Yash, हम तो ऐसे ही गपशप मारते रहेंगे. I don't know.
Let's come to the book.
We should structure our conversation. Because
ये ऐसे लग रहा है हम जैसे we are sitting over cup of coffee और वहीं बैठे बात कर रहे हैं.
Which is also fine, I think. Okay, so I'll read, because this is a very long book which has taken me about 3 years to write. So in fact, I would request you to open the page 28 in the prologue.
Okay.
Page 28 in the prologue, because that'll, and that'll.
Yeah, here it is. Bilkul.
So are there some lessons from this trip? Yes. First and foremost is the fact that while the notion of identity is certainly fluid, there are certain binding elements that prevent it from meandering too far away from the accepted course. They say Punjabi kaun. So Punjabi is slightly fluid, because right up to Delhi, we identify ourselves as Punjabis. So it's a fluid thing. It's fluid. It is not fixed in stone, and yet you can't be in Madras and say that you're a. It's fluid. It's fluid. So it's not all gas, and it is not frozen in ice. Language is usually a force which brings people together, but script can be a bone of contention, as happened in the case of Punjab. You have Shamukhi, you have Gurmukhi, and it's written in Devanagari. Second, there's a considerable difference in the way pan-Indian parties and regional, or that is state-based parties, look at it. Thus, in other words, the Akali Dal's perspective and Trinamool Congress's perspective is driven entirely by the interests of Punjab and Bengal. And there's no problem in that. There is no problem. I'm not passing a value judgment. I'm only saying that the interests are going to be varied. They're going to be different. So, because they're looking at everything from that state's perspective, whereas the National Party will also look at what are the implications elsewhere. So, you see, the Congress will also look at what is the impact of this on the politics of Haryana and the politics of Rajasthan. The Akali Dal is very clear that I am looking at politics of Punjab.
Yeah, boss.
Congress is looking at politics of Bengal. So it,
like DMK for Tamil Nadu.
So it's so there are no, and we are not adding any value judgment. We're not saying that this is good or this is bad. We're only saying this is what is. Third, political parties change their perspectives with time. And I want to give you an example that, at the very early stages, none of the political parties, whether it was the Congress or the Bharatiya Janasangh or the Communist Party of India or the PSP, they were not in favor of reorganizing Bombay into Maharashtra and Gujarat. They were not in favor of the reorganization of the state. They were not in favor of the reorganization. Over a period of time, they've all changed their perspective. जब उत्तराखंड, झारखंड, छत्तीसगढ़ बना है, तो दोनों पार्टीज क्लेम करें कि हमने बनाया, हमने बनाया, हमने. जब तेलंगाना बना, तो it has come with an all-party consensus. I mean, every party said yes, 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 yes. Now today, when there is talk of reorganization of states, no party is outrightly rejecting it. They're saying, all right. So perspectives change with time, which is very important. And those parties which don't change their perspective with time, they are, they lose out. Fifth, there's a gap between what the national political leadership of a party may want and what the ground level workers actually do on the ground. बोलते हैं, मतलब लीडर कुछ भी बोले, ग्राउंड पे ग्राउंड वर्कर अपना करता है जो उसको करना है, वो वही करे. Sixth, the opposition to an idea can come from any quarter. It may not come. You see, whenever you think that यहाँ से opposition आएगी, opposition could come from somewhere you never even thought की बात से. Seventh, the English language press, the Hindi newspapers, and regional newspapers have very different points of view on most issues. Even the coverage will be. Eighth, every story has multiple perspectives, which is highlighted from the Sikkim example. Ninth, while 7 decades, and we are entering our 7th decade, both of us. For both of us, it's a major time period. But in the history of a nation, it is nothing. I mean, nations go much longer than decades. And as far as civilizations are concerned, they go in millennia. So when you look at the civilizational perspective, it's very different. When you look at a nation's perspective, it is very different. When you look at an individual's life, it's again very different. So these are some of the important learnings. And last, of course, I've said that, every dynasty must rise and every dynasty must fall. So it is, और जब पावर आएगी तो उसके साथ ह्यूब्रिस भी आएगी, और जब ह्यूब्रिस आएगी तो उसके बाद उसका डिक्लाइन भी होगा. तो ये
डिक्लाइन होना
है वो चलता रहेगा. दिस इज द स्टोरी ऑफ द बुक इन विच व्हाट आई हैव डन इज, देखिए हमारे पास क्या था कि जब जब भारत की पॉलिटिकल कार्टोग्राफी चेंज होती, जब जब नई स्टेट बनती, तो एक नया नक्शा बनाता है सर. So because and I must give full credit to General Girish Kumar, who was then the Surveyor General of India and a good friend of mine. So I got access to to his library and to all the maps.
ये जैसे पहला मैप आपने लगाया
पहला मैप, this is 1947. अब जब इसके अगले मैप पे जाएंगे तो देखें कितना चेंज आ गया. 1947 और 1950 के बीच में बहुत जबरदस्त चेंज. आप भी इलस्ट्रेशन दे दीजिए.
Yeah, you can see absolutely.
Right, so there's a major change.
52 का 54 का मैप.
54 का मैप. So the major changes. So when you actually, so what I started doing was I started looking at map of 1947, the map of 1950, and क्या-क्या changes आई हैं. मतलब ये 3 साल में क्या-क्या changes. तो सारी की सारी रियासतें उड़ गई. All the रियासत went. I mean, they became part A, part B, part C, part D states. फिर उसके बाद में 52 में पहला हिंदी का नक्शा छपा. पहले हिंदी के नक्शे में पहली बार Chin or China as the word was, I mean, China as the concept, because Angrez, देखिए, whatever, I mean, we have all our disagreements with the Britishers, but they have good geostrategic mind. They never use the word China. They always use the word Tibet.
Yeah.
They never use the word China on the map, because a map not only tells you about yourself, it also tells you about how your neighbors look at you, I mean, how you look at your neighbors and how your neighbors look at you. So we, I mean, for whatever reasons, we got. And in some maps of the India, the word Tibet disappeared. 56, 57 के मैप पे Tibet था ही नहीं, वो पूरा एरिया चाइना दिखा रहा है. फिर बाद में जब हमारे फिर से जब हुआ, then we've been showing both China and Tibet as a Tibet autonomous region. But that's a later part. So what I'm saying is that a map reflects not only what we think of ourselves, but map also reflects what we think of others. Their maps reflect what they think of us. Because अगर हम अपने मैप पे ही जाएं, अपनी बाउंड्रीज को ही माने, तो we also have a share of boundary with Afghanistan. After all, on our map and as per Schedule 1 to the Indian Constitution, Gilgit-Baltistan is part of India, and if Gilgit-Baltistan is a part of India, though of course it comes to the line of the deployment of forces, we know that it is not, I mean that it's de jure हो सकता है, लेकिन de facto नहीं. लेकिन मैप बहुत चीजें हमें पता था. So anyways, this is how the story of the map started off. जैसे जैसे आप रिसर्च करते जाते हैं, मजेदार किस्से, कहानियां पता लगती रहती है, क्या हुआ क्या नहीं हुआ. why हैदराबाद के साथ कैसे हुआ, जम्मू कश्मीर के साथ कैसे हुआ. So it's a very interesting story of map.
और कई चीजें मैंने देखा जो हम देहरादून में बात कर रहे थे मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री सेमिनार में, आज के पर्सपेक्टिव में बहुत लोग जो है ना फेक या हाफ ट्रूथ्स को लेके ब्लेम करते हैं गांधी जी को या नेहरू को या पटेल को या अंबेडकर को भी, जबकि इतने आइकॉनिक फिगर्स हैं. सोच अलग अलग थी, लेकिन आज के पर्सपेक्टिव में देख के हम एक झूठ को परोसने की कोशिश करते हैं.
Point is that all of these 4 people, they agree that India has to be reorganized on linguistic lines. There have been strategic and tactical mistakes, but I suppose ho gaya, it's fine. Now the point is that what we have to understand is, and what I keep giving the examples to a lot of people, is that our biggest strength is that we accepted and celebrated, not accepted, we celebrated our diversity. मैं कई बार example देता हूँ कि what happened to Czechoslovakia, what happened to Yugoslavia, what happened to Pakistan, what happened to USSR. ऐसा नहीं है कि एक बार आपके पास एक sovereign central authority आ गई तो हमेशा रहेंगे. ये तो एक myth है. बहुत नेशंस आती हैं, बहुत नेशंस उड़ भी जाती हैं।
हम्म।
इनफैक्ट पिछले 100 साल में, अभी कभी वक्त हो तो देखेंगे, जब हम स्टैम्प कलेक्शन का, आपको भी शौक रहा होगा कभी, कई ऐसी देश हैं जिनके स्टैम्प थे, वो स्टैम्प ही है, देश तो है ही नहीं।
हाँ।
है ना? और मेरा एक और कहना था कि देखिए, बहुत सारी चीजें बहुत लोग इशू कर सकते हैं, लेकिन नक्शा, स्टैम्प और करेंसी, ये
हम्म।
3 चीजें हैं जो सिर्फ सोवरेन अथॉरिटी कर सकती
हम्म।
है जी। ओनली अ
नक्शा, स्टैम्प
सोवरेन।
और करेंसी, ये सिर्फ सॉवरेन अथॉरिटी कर सकती है, हाँ।
स्टैम्प्स तो अब आउट ऑफ फैशन हो गई, बिकॉज अब तो इंटरनेट की वजह से, लेकिन यू नो इन आवर टाइम, आई मीन, स्टैम्प वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग।
वेरी
किसका
इंपॉर्टेंट।
किसकी
हम्म।
किसकी फोटो आती है स्टैम्प पे, किसके नाम पे स्टैम्प होती है। इनफैक्ट वी स्टिल डू फर्स्ट डे कवर्स एट द वैल्यू अवार्ड्स, बट दिस इज अ it's an art, it's a form, it's a hobby which
और ये
is
हमारी हमारी हिस्ट्री को भी, आने वाली सदियां अगर पीछे मुड़ के देखेंगी, एक एक इनपुट है, यहाँ से भी कुछ ना कुछ मिलेगा।
मैं आपको जो जो मेन जो चीज मैं बताना चाहूंगा इस किताब के बारे में, ये है सिक्किम का चैप्टर। सिक्किम का चैप्टर इसलिए इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाता है क्योंकि ये दिखाता है कि कैसे डेमोग्राफिक्स की जब चेंज होती है, जब डेमोग्राफी चेंज होती है, तो उसका पॉलिटिक्स पे क्या इम्पैक्ट।
हम्म।
और कई बार लोग पूछते हैं कि भाई वो भूटान, नेपाल, सिक्किम, सी पॉइंट, सिक्किम इज वेरी यूनिक इन द सेंस, सिक्किम में क्या हुआ कि आई डोंट नो वेदर यू हैव सर्व्ड इन दोस एरियाज
तो
और
आई
नॉट,
डिडंट सर्व इन नॉर्थ
राइट
ईस्ट।
नेक्स्ट टू Kalimpong, is right next to Kalimpong. Now, what happened was, you see, Sikkim was a kingdom of the Lepchas. Lepchas की kingdom थी. Then the Bhutias, the Bhutan, they took over. But both were followers of the Dalai Lama Buddhism. Both were followers of the Dalai Lama brand of Buddhism. So they were monastic order, तो monks थे, nuns थी. लेकिन cultivation की तरफ ध्यान नहीं गया. But you could pray, you could achieve the status of an arihant, but you need to eat. So they invited some Nepali workers in 1870s to come and cultivate the fields around the monasteries.
ओ। हम्म।
And by 1947, the population of Nepalis exceeded the population of Lepchas and Kutiyas in Sikkim.
हम्म।
Therefore, in 1947 itself, the Nepal Congress said that we want to merge with India, because the majority population was Nepali, and because of Darjeeling and because of other things, they wanted a merger with India.
हम्म।
बिकॉज चोग्याल की जो असेंबली थी उसमें 60 सीटें थी, 20 भूटियाज की, 20 लेप्चाज की और 20 नेपाली की।
हम्म।
मतलब कि जो मैक्सिमम जो 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 मेजोरिटी पॉपुलेशन थी, दे वर
हम्म।
बीइंग disenfranchised, because if you are deciding your assembly on the basis of your denomination, not on the basis of one man one vote, तो उनका था। तो अब ये जब जब ये मुहिम शुरू हुआ, तो उस समय आई थिंक दैट वाज अ बिग मिस्टेक, बिकॉज वी शुड हैव, Sikkim wanted to be part of it, and they should have been made part of India, but for various reasons. On that, I have a major issue about, why was that placed under the Indian Frontier Administrative Service, placed under the Ministry of External Affairs, gave wrong impressions. After all, नेफा और सिक्किम को फॉरेन अफेयर्स मिनिस्ट्री के नीचे रखना
क्यों
एक
डाला?
एक बड़ी भारी, it's an unexplained thing, except that it was a rivalry between Nehru and Patel,
हम्म।
so it's very clear about it. But anyway, be that as it. अब इसमें जो किताबें लिखी, सबसे पहली किताब लिखी गई इस पे, स्मैश एंड क्रैक, अगेन वेल रिटन बुक बाय माय, I mean, it's a very senior, a very respected journalist, सुनंदा के दत्ता, जिनके ग्रैंडफादर आईसीएस में, उन्होंने लिखी स्मैश एंड, बट दैट वाज रिटन फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ द चोग्याल। उसी के बाद में एक किताब आई, द सिक्किम सागा, दैट वाज बाय बीएस दास, जो हमारे एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर थे वहां। ही रोट इट from the perspective of an Indian administrator who was posted.
हम्म।
And there was a third book which was written by Andrew Duff, who wrote it from the perspective of the missionaries there, because his aunts were missionaries there, and his father had also trekked to that. This is a more objective book. He understood, I mean, that democracy be. So he wrote that book, but it gave the perspective of the missionaries. It gave the perspective again from the Chogyal's point.
हम्म।
Then Mr. Sidhu, who was the chief of RAW in Sikkim, and he had worked very closely with Kazi Lantuk Dorji, who was the CM of Sikkim, and I've also had the pleasure of spending time with him, because he came and settled in Kalimpong.
हम्म।
He wrote it to resurrect the reputation of Kazi Lantuk Dorji, who after some time, he was the first chief minister. तो उनके अपने perspective से लिखी. So he wrote it from the perspective of the Kazi. So, and now there's another foreign service officer who's written a book. He's written it in the perspective of India-China relations. Now, पांचों किताबें, especially the first four, are all factually correct. They contain the same fact, and yet they've been written with a different perspective. So, which means that what matters in any book of history is not the fact; it is the narrative. So I think it is the narrative that is most important. That's what I have been learning and reading, last few years. So it's the narrative which is more. How do you place your narrative? How do you place those things? And if you understand the narrative, then you have sort of clinched the issue. Otherwise, facts तो इतने हैं कि हर fact को तो आपको एक you have to place facts in a certain perspective. So that's the point which I'm trying to make.
नहीं, ब्रिलियंट, बहुत आई थिंक ऑन ज्योग्राफी एंड इसके ऊपर वी शुड हैव पार्ट 2 लेटर ऑन सर्टेन सिक्किम की बात की, और मे बी J&K को लेके कभी बात करेंगे, उत्तराखंड को, या इंडिया चाइना बॉर्डर।
एक जो हमें बात करनी है वो ये बात करनी है हमने कि एक मोमेंट था जब बंगाल एंड बिहार वांटेड टू बिकम वन स्टेट। वो मोमेंट था 1954 का। वो मोमेंट अगर हो जाता तो फिर bilingual states, multilingual states chal jati. You see, half the problem is that, the problem was that, when other than Hindi, all other languages wanted a state jisme sirf wahi bhasha. Now, but that thing has gone off after Telangana. In fact, you're right. We must have a second conversation on whether India needs to reorganize herself.
यस एग्जैक्टली, थोड़ा वी नीड टू, देखो नई सोच होती रहनी चाहिए अगर हमने रियली में एक ग्रेट कंट्री बनना है। और मैं जब भी बातचीत करता हूँ ना स्कूल कॉलेजेस वगैरह में, मेरी लास्ट लाइन ये रहती है, प्लीज डोंट फॉरगेट वी आर मैनिफेस्टेशन ऑफ अ ग्रेट सिविलाइजेशन। ये चीजें आएंगी जाएंगी, व्हाट्सएप यूनिवर्सिटी, ये है ना।
We have to place the Indian nation in the context of our civilization.
Of our civilization.
We are a civilizational state.
We are a civilization. Absolutely. अब मुझे जो है, अब मैं 2-4 चीजें आपसे, इतने सीनियर IAS ऑफिसर मेरे शो पे आए हुए, मैं जानना चाहूंगा। पहले बात तो सिविल सर्विसेज रिफॉर्म्स को लेके एंड पुलिस रिफॉर्म्स, इफ यू कैन कंबाइन दिस टुगेदर, मोटे तौर पे आप बताओ कि क्या रिफॉर्म्स चाहिए हमें।
देखिए, both reforms are a bit different. I mean, having grown up in a police campus, we'll talk briefly, or all right, we can talk.
या पहले आप सिविल सर्विसेज रिफॉर्म से मुझे
ये जो लगता है कि जो 13 रैंक्स की जो हायरार्की है वो मॉडर्न स्टेट में नहीं चल सकती। मतलब कांस्टेबल, हेड कांस्टेबल, ASI, SI, इंस्पेक्टर, DSP, SP, SSP, DIG, additional IG, additional DG. These, I mean, I think all, in fact, I would go to the extent of saying that both in the IAS and the IPS, recruitments have to be done at a level. In fact, it is linked to the state police service exam. Mm-hmm. I think we need to expand the state police services in a very big way, state civil service in a very big way. We need many more people. All IAS and all IPS officers must spend a few years as BDOs and as officers of a thana. Because that is where delivery of
exactly. ये नहीं, बहुत बड़ी बात आपने कही कि सीधा ऊपर से आने के बजाय थोड़ा सा
जो है, the actual work, the actual investigation, the actual maintenance. So what happens is that we are sort of we parachute हो रहे हैं।
हाँ, मैं वो वर्ड यूज नहीं करना चाहता था, पैराशूटेड लीडरशिप। हाँ,
so I think that is one set of reforms which is very important. But I think we need to have a longer discussion.
Longer, and maybe have it with get a police officer's perspective also.
I think what we'll do, if you agree, is because I've also written on judicial reform. So I think we should devote our next session on reforms in, the IAS, the All India Judicial Service, the IPS, and even because of strong demand from diplomats that because. See, fact is that if you're all sitting for the UPSC exam, it's the synonym as the IAS.
Yeah, everybody, सब IAS बनना चाहते हैं। हाँ,
तो उससे एक problem है because a lot of people, after all, how many people will make it to the IAS? The rest of the people will bear a grudge. It's a very legitimate grudge, and the fact is that there's not much difference. In fact, at the same total, you could be in the IAS and you could be in the IPS. My roommate, very dear friend, same marks पे हो जाता है। I think this is not a subject which we can cover in 2-3 minutes. So Yash, I think
नहीं, फिर we will have 30 minutes के segments on each of this. We love to do this. you
Yeah,
know.
because I have already written in the print on the All India Judicial Service. I've also written in the print on the hierarchies in police and also about the police. There's many reforms have to take place. We have to move towards a police commissioner system, and police commissioner system ipso facto means that there has to be less hierarchy. In fact, जब police commissioner था तो उसमें sergeants होते थे. It would be sergeants. I mean, it was not a constable based force. But what we've done is that now you've created commissionerates, but you've again continued with the constabulary. I mean, the whole purpose of having the commissionerate system was that you start as sergeants. So smart sergeants, as you would
ये
have seen.
तो मुझे ये बताओ संजीव की ये रिफॉर्म्स इसलिए नहीं हो रहे हैं कि पॉलिटिशियन नहीं चाहता है या हम खुद नहीं चाहते हैं रिफॉर्म्स आए सर्विसेज ऑफिसर्स
दोनों ही चीजें हैं देखिए बट आई थिंक व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इज दैट till you hit a crisis point, life continues as usual. I mean,
we are status quo.
It is not that the कई बार कहते हैं as the IAS failed. No, we have not failed, but we are at 50-60%. We ought to be at 95%.
हम फेल नहीं हुए लेकिन बहुत बड़ी सक्सेस भी नहीं है.
So somebody asked, has the IAS failed the nation? No, we have not failed the nation. But if you say that have we done exceptionally well, the answer is no. So there is a problem in the way we formulate the question. So we have not failed, but we have not done exceptionally well, which our potential is. So I think on that we can start.
Definitely, this is very close to my heart because I've worked with BSF, IPS ये वो तो उसमें हम बात करेंगे. अब मुझे before you go, I want to ask you a couple of questions on this elections के ऊपर. अभी electoral bonds आए हैं. How do you see this entire thing panning out?
I would say that it's all in the process of reform. Electoral bonds by itself is a good thing. The non-transparency aspect of that has already been addressed by the Supreme Court. It should be a very transparent system. It should not be confined only to the state bank. Any bank, it should be a very transparent sort of a thing. So that once it becomes transparent, then अभी जो ये issue आ रहा है कि भाई आपने आज पैसे दिए और कल आपको commission मिल गया, all that will go. So over a period of time, why people must contribute to electoral bond? The problem was about transparency. The problem was not about electoral bond because money is required for elections. So why not raise it?
उसमें सबसे बड़ा ट्रांसपेरेंसी को लेके इसलिए इसको छुपाया गया कि क्विड प्रो क्वो का अब इट्स वेरी क्लियरली विजिबल कि या तो पहले कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लेके फिर पैसे दे दो या एंड द यूज ऑफ
it is this aspect which I think the Supreme Court has addressed, and I think it's you see because all said and done, what was earlier happening under the table is now happening, across the board, and it must be refined. I mean, in fact, I would go to the extent of saying that जैसे अब US में people raise funds for the election. Already, in fact, Hyderabad वगैरह में there are now startups which are helping you to raise funds. I would only hope that we can have startups which will help parties and individuals to raise funds. So we need.
Also, एक मिस्टर कुरैशी ने मैं उनको भी एक बार पॉडकास्ट पे लेके आया था. उन्होंने कुछ दिन पहले आर्टिकल लिखा कि हम प्रोपोर्शनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन में वोट परसेंटेज एक इलेक्शन फंड इकट्ठा किया जाए, सारी पार्टी उसी में दे, सारे कोई उसमें चंदा डाल दो और बेस्ड ऑन योर वी विल गिव यू मनी.
उसमें तो प्रॉब्लम ये होगी ना जिसको अब 400 सीटें मिल जाएंगी और किसी को पैसे ही नहीं मिलेंगे. It has to be based on my choice. It has to be based on my choice. And I think you see, fact is that problems happen when the institutions of governance are not operating. Now that our Supreme Court is working well, the Election Commission is working well, with little issues here and there. But on the whole, you see, no one has ever accused our elections of being rigged. No one can accuse our elections of being so. This aspect was there.
वो मैं मानता हूँ कि our election commission, thanks to Mr. T.N. Session, I wish we get 1 or 2 officers like him. वो वैसे चाहिए. लेकिन आप बताओ फिर ये why don't we agree to have a chief justice, prime minister and the leader of opposition elect? फिर क्यों गवर्नमेंट चाहते है कि मेरी बात हो? I should get the best officer who's मेरे हिसाब से जो मेरी बात मानेगा.
There's a major we'll discuss this because there's a major issue on that. I would not like to comment on this for the simple reason that the conduct of elections is not a judicial process. It is a quasi-judicial process, and when the leader of the opposition or the leader of the largest person in the thing, he is involved. So that's fine. I think I'm quite comfortable with the leader of the opposition.
दूसरी बात ये, why only IAS? Why don't we have somebody from IPS, somebody from other service?
You have. It's said that it's open. You've had IRS officers in the thing. You've had jurists in this thing. So if you look into the list of of all the people who've been election commissioners, not everyone has been from the IAS.
No, but mostly, अब देखो, all three of them are from IAS. We could have had one person who was not non-IAS. He could have given a different perspective.
No, yes, but again, I mean, not that I mean, of course, I have to. It's my biradari. But again, the point is कि conduct of elections जो है, essential conduct of elections is done by the returning officer, who's the district magistrate. और जितना तजुर्बा अपने जिंदगी में इतनी इलेक्शंस करवाई, इतनी बार ऑब्जर्वर होके गए हैं, that we know elections at the back of our, at the palm of our hand. So I mean, उतना experience किसको और होगा?
किसको और होगा?
I mean, किसको और होगा? I mean, after all, observers हो, जो भी हो, ultimately the representation of People's Act, when you read it, it is the job of the returning officer to conduct the election. And we have conducted elections not only for the parliament, for the assembly, for panchayats, for this, that, चलते ही रहते. अब शायद one nation one vote हो, लेकिन अभी तक तो बंगाल में हम हर साल ही इलेक्शन कराते हैं.
हाल ही इलेक्शन. चलो, विल लीव दिस हियर, क्योंकि बाद में बात करेंगे. अब मैं लास्ट आपसे पूछना चाहता हूँ, यंग जनरेशन को, जो भारत के यंग बच्चे हैं, जो 16-17 साल से अभी स्कूल में हैं, कॉलेज में हैं, या तो फौज में ऑफिसर बनना चाहते हैं या सिविल सर्विसेज क्रैक करना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए किस टाइप का रूटीन होना चाहिए, क्या पढ़ना चाहिए, कैसा अपना व्यक्तित्व, अपनी पर्सनैलिटी कैसे बनानी चाहिए कि आप ये टेस्ट आपको लगे कि आपके लिए और आप क्रैक कर सकें इसको?
देखिए, most important thing is a very clear determination that we have to do, this is what we want to do. And then certainly I think if one is starting at the age of 16 or 17, in addition to whatever, in fact, I would suggest that जो हमारा syllabus है, that should be read, because there is not much difference between the syllabus in what you're reading in your school for the NDA exam. I mean, the same, I mean, the syllabus is the same. Again, if you are in your college and you're pursuing liberal arts, there's not much difference in the syllabus of the university and the UPSC syllabus. But as I said, we should try to spend equal amount of time in writing, and writing, because the only thing that the examiner can judge is what you have written. The examiner, you could know everything, but the examiner will judge you on what you have written in that limited time. And that's something which, which I realized while giving my exams for English literature and for history. First, in our time, there used to be 5 questions and, 3 hours. So invariably, we would do first question in 50 minutes, second question in 40 minutes, third question in 30 minutes, and then rush through the last. Then, so the examiner would know that you know everything. But if in the last question, you have not written much, you're not going to get marks. So that is the whole aspect. So it is not about how much you know. And I would again say, that write. The only way in which you can succeed in a competitive exam is to write. And what I would suggest also is to maintain a little diary. Write something. Let us say, let's take a subject which will not change. For example, gender or gender issues. So let's take constitutional amendment. So let's take judiciary. Let's take elections. Let's write something on today. Today we're talking in the month of March. Write, say, 1,000 words on this. Write the same thing in 500 words and the same thing in 200. After 2 months, again write the same thing in 1,000 words, 300 words, 200 words, and you will start noticing the difference. And you are competing only with yourself. The other very clear message that I wish to give to everyone is that you are competing only with yourself. You are not competing with anyone else, because you cannot compete with them. You can only compete with how competent you are today. Is your competence better after 1 week compared to yourself? Because let everyone do what they have to do, because you can't stop the others from doing what they're doing. You can only change yourself, and you can only change the way you are looking at it. So I think this is my message to the young.
क्योंकि क्या हो गया ना, आप देखो कि we need good people in all the forces, including civil service. बट जो ये कोई कहता 30,000 करोड़ का ये जॉब मार्केट,
3,000 करोड़ का है,
3,000 करोड़ का IAS का, तो
60,000 करोड़
पैसे वो दे रहे हैं बेचारे जिन्होंने कभी बनना नहीं है, और वो सालों साल लगे रहते हैं.
इसके लिए मेरा जो सुझाव रहेगा वो ये है कि आई थिंक दैट्स पावर. आई मीन that the number of attempts is one thing. I think we must, everyone, especially those who are sitting for the civil services, they must have a fallback option.
हम्म
I think we'll discuss this next time.
हाँ नेक्स्ट टाइम डिस्कस करेंगे कि
Have
ये
a
जो
focus on
कोचिंग
this.
इंडस्ट्री है, हाउ इट इज, हमारी जो इनसिक्योरिटीज है माँ बाप की बच्चों की, उसको एक्सप्लॉइट करते हैं और इतना पैसा कूट रहे हैं और बच्चे डिसअपॉइंट हो रहे हैं, एंजाइटी है, डिप्रेशन है, कोटा फैक्ट्री
Suicide.
में तो सुइसाइड होते रहते हैं. तो मैं इस पे बहुत बात करता हूँ अपने
Next week
लाइफ
we'll
में.
discuss.
हाँ, वी विल डिस्कस दिस, वी विल डेफिनेटली
Good.
डिस्कस दिस. सो लास्ट
Okay.
लास्ट क्वेश्चन ये है कि हाउ टू अवॉइड गेट गुड नॉलेज और फेक और हाफ ट्रूथ, और जो हम कहते हैं व्हाट्सएप यूनिवर्सिटी जो प्रोपागेंडा, उससे कैसे बचे? व्हाट वुड बी योर
I would say that, when you are reading a credible source, when you're reading a credible source, then, if you're reading, say, credible source, the newspaper or something that has I mean, in case of a book, for example, we do a literature festival. So we insist that the book must have an ISBN number. We insist that, whatever you read, if there is authenticity behind it, then it makes better. Then you'll be able to know what you are reading. And I would also suggest that, we have to ration our time as far as the WhatsApp is concerned. I mean, not more than maybe, an hour or half an hour. I mean, but watch it like an entertainment show. I mean, there's some good things also there, but I think it's important that we go to the original source. That is always very good. And it's very interesting. For instance, if you have to read about the Constitution of India, read the Constitution directly. Why go through this commentary or that commentary or that commentary? I mean, you read it directly. In the initial stages, it is slightly boring to read a Constitution. But I tell you, a Constitution makes a fantastic read, especially when you look into all the amendments that have taken place. You see that what has been deleted, what has been added. It's a fascinating study. So I think go back to the source and you will enjoy it.
एंड यू विल एंजॉय इट. सही बात है, किताबें पढ़ो, अच्छे अखबार पढ़ो, एंड न्यूज़पेपर यू गेट बोथ साइड्स, यू
Yeah.
गेट टू एंड गुड न्यूज़पेपर्स लाइक द इंडियन एक्सप्रेस, हिंदू एंड ऑल, दे प्रिंट
Print, yeah.
बोथ एक्सट्रीम्स, है ना? सो आप दोनों से एंड फॉर्म गुड ओपिनियंस सो दैट यू कैन टेक पार्ट इन एनी ग्रुप डिस्कशन, इंटरव्यू में यू कम आउट एज समबडी हु इज वेल इन्फॉर्म्ड, है ना? सो थैंक यू वेरी मच डॉक्टर संजीव चोपड़ा, बहुत मजा आया, बहुत सी बातें हुई.
Thank you, Yash. It was always a pleasure. Thank you. I mean, and we'll do another.
We will continue this
Yes.
discussion, and good luck to your literary festival and all the.
No, you must come this year. You must come this year.
Definitely I will come.
Also
Definitely I
request
will
all
come.
our viewers that they
Yeah.
can, click on www.valueofwords.org. So you'll get a lot of information.
I will put this in the. I will put this in the link to this video. आपका ये, and more and more people should read your books, read your articles, and बहुत balanced आप opinion देते हो, तो बहुत मजा आता है आपसे मिलके. Thank you very much आज के
Thank
सेशन.
you, Yash. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. जय हिंद.